Welcome back on Dynamod. Today I want to propose you a video about
the Stegadon building and magnetizing. This is the basic Stegadon that I yet built and paint. I have another head eventually to choose, but I preferred this one. It has a bit of problem about building for such Stracosaurus way, but still it's nice. Then we have this that are the weapon that goes on the platform, that are these ones, so that magnetize. We see all the magnets then. Had this that are the platform with the one, the decoration one, and these that it's about the giant crossbow. These are the Skink that are the crew of the Stegadon. And then we have some things to notice. We had these two standards that could be the crew or could be built in another way, and we see different ways to use these on the model, because I think that you can even take them out of the model and play with them. These are the two heroes, so the Chief and the Sorcerer. Here we have the throne and eventually the mage part, so that we can combine, and it's said that we see because we can build and monetize. These are two that are for the bottom part as stepping stones and so on. Sincerely, I don't like to use them, so I think that I'll use something else, but there can be decoration that it's better to notice. Here it's the platform, the main one that will go on such model, and here are the things that remained from not used, that are part of the things that can be used as accessories. Other are the part about the Skinks, eventually change weapons and so on, and other decoration that you can play with. For example, these ones that you can see, longer ones, could be used for both, eventually use like decoration for the part of the platform, or for getting something else, because could be used as standards and so on. So anyway, you can use them in a lot of different ways. Anyway, remember that these are something that you can add anyway, or use for personalize for your version of the Stegadon, because you have different version of the same model. So now we can see what we can have with these things and how I might test them. These models, it's quite old because it comes from the Warhammer Fantasy. I have still the box of that edition, and this one, it's the one that I'm going to build and so on. It's the same model, so it's not a problem. As you can see, we can see one of the options available. Still, this is quite amazing. And about the base, I decided to use not the square one that it was inside, but this one that comes from the green subworld, because I decided to build for Age of Sigmar. Still, even if I'm not it about, it's quite easy to prepare about the square one if you want to play with Warhammer Fantasy, or eventually you can monetize under here these pieces that you can see, because it's quite flat and you only had to drill and put the magnets. Eventually 442 it's enough, so that you can really put and change the base when you need, so that for Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy, so use the same models based on the needed that you have. This up to you, decide based on what you need. Sincerely, I play only with Age of Sigmar about such models, so it's not a problem, and decide to use the base and keep that one. But it's up to you eventually to decide if you want to make such things that are not prepared. Still, it's an option that could be useful. Before to paint, I decided to monetize a lot of points. First, it's the discussion about how to monetize such model, about the base, and here I yet suggest you, and about the platform here. I decided not to monetize other than these two parts that you can see, because I wanted to have something to keep these two options. And if you do so, it's better before to assemble everything else to put the one that you need before, so that it's better put. Otherwise, these two horns will have some problems about positioning once that you build the other parts and then this one. So eventually remember that when you disassemble to change this one, you have to pick up these parts that are not monetized, because in my opinion it's better to have a mechanical here instead of magnets, and it's much better in my opinion. But these are something that you need anyway to monetize. So here are the other side, the same it's about here, so as you can see, and anyway it's really quite comfortable to do, and it's quite nice. But here, okay, I admit that I had to build this before, and eventually it's a problem about painting. I don't have such problems anyway, because it's quite mobile, but eventually if you have such type of trouble, remember that it's better to build this part then the crossbow separately, and then this part to glue only after you painted the main part about this, so that you don't have any problem. I haven't such problems, so I had not problems about thinking of using such one. About the platform, instead I created different magnetization. The first one is this one that you can see here, that is a 542. Eventually you can use also a 543mm one. It's quite simple because it's perfect positioned inside here, and this it's used to be combined with this one. As you can see here, there is a hole, so I used a part for a picture paper. This is the one that I used, so that I can position and have this position on and keep the model in the right position. It's a bit aside, but it's not a problem anyway, because anyway if I force using this, so making such effort, but this it's a mechanical one, so I put like this. Pay attention eventually to make this work. You can put in a direction or another one, and doing this you can find that these parts are going to be put in these two ones, and as you can see, voila, it's really perfect suited, and it's stable enough, so it's not a problem about this. Another magnet that I put on such positioning is this one that you can find. It's a 241mm one. Eventually you can try also a 3, but this is used only to make such magnetization. I magnetize also the Chief Skink, so that I can position it in such a way. It's not completely stable, but it's enough. Or for this, that is the shaman. About this, remember that there is a hole here, so that you put the tail inside here, and then you put so, and it's magnetized, so it's more stable in such a way. And okay, you have the model. It's not completely stable, but still it's perfect work, because it's there. Because I wanted to have the change about the model and not having the problem about what I had to choose about. Another part about the things that I magnetize, it's this one, that it's the front part, where I cut off these two segments. I use again 241mm ones to position eventually these two weapons, that are these ones for the shooting. And here it's up to you decide if you want, but it's really quite nice. This is a stronger kept about magnetizing, because it's direct contact. Instead here there is not, because I didn't want to bring down the design about these parts, so I decided not to do. Still it's an option eventually, and so I made such thing. It's really quite simple, but quite efficient. I decided not to magnetize other parts about here to position these models here, because the problem is that these feet are really quite small, so it's a bit difficult to positioning. Eventually you can try, but you risk to ruin the parts related about the models themselves, because if you go to see about the magnets, as you can see, it's a bit bigger and it will be not enough stable, so pay attention about. And about the weapons of such model, eventually you can magnetize the arms, because I made an experiment some time ago, and eventually you can make such type with the magnets. Eventually remember that it's 242mm one inside here and 241mm one here. It's an experiment because I wanted to create a different Skink and so on, but as you can see, this model it's a little bigger than this one, so it has better positioning about. So remember that you had to consider also if it's worth or not the magnetization of the models. For example, for such one, I decided not to use, and eventually, or to positioning them on such one, making a sort of here, so that they can be kept like this, or glue them. But what I thought is eventually to position, after that I positioned the model of the Stegadon, this outside eventually, so that I can position like this, or build on the basis so that I can have them around the model as a sort of dioramas on like this. It's up to you decide how you want to create, because there are little things but could be really quite interesting. To assemble the model, so I decided to make such options so that I can put this here. Then I take this part, as you can see there is no magnet under here, put on, and then take this, as you can see this is the hole that it's necessary to put this up, and then put the other one that you have to pay attention about the direction here that you need, so that you can position it like this, and so you have the model up, and it's really quite easy to select, and if you need to change eventually you can take off this, but it's better to do such thing off, put this aside and position this and do the same for the other option eventually. About the instructions, it's not so easy because as you can see it's not the best. Okay, you can understand, but luckily it's not so difficult to see, but there are only images about. So this is quite problematic, and you have to choose based on what options you need to create everything. So think about reading about this to understand if you need a version and so on, which options you need and so on, and try to personalize a lot, because as you can see you can have a lot of different ways to prepare your model, but at the same time have really quite a lot of decision to take to decide how you want everything to be suited for your model. And then you need to choose which part to build, if the one with the simple throne, so that you can position this model up here, and so it can be really quite nice, or eventually you should decide if to use this one, so that you have such options with the Skink. If to add these ones, that could be quite nice, but it's up to you. Eventually the real problem is if you choose not to build anything and positioning these models, because or you glue them or you have to position them a bit like this, so that they are not perfectly suited. Remember that you have anyway such weaponry that are available, so that anyway you can have different options. But yeah, it's a bit complicated eventually, but eventually you can also think about positioning these models on the base around here, so that are trying to combat on the battlefield and so on, why they have the upper part here, but you do not have the protection. Eventually you can use also a bit of blue tack under the feet, so that you can keep them in positioning temporarily, and eventually it's not a problem. But it's up to you decide how you want that this model is suited for yourself. And you can magnetize in a lot of different ways anyway, as you can see. At the same time you have to pay attention about some details, because are the details that dictate which type of model you are going to use and how you want everything to behave. So it's up to you eventually to decide all the things that you need about. Here you can see the options that you can have as alternative. For example, the standard could be put on a base separate one, the skinks on the base eventually, or the standard could be put on the base itself, so you can think about positioning like this or separately like this. It's up to you. Also here you can have about optimization so on, to put in a lot of different options. About the standard you can have like this without, or cut off at the base so that you can put the standard separately. So you can have a lot of different options and so on available based on what you need and how you want to create, because you have a lot of personalization, and the model is perfect fit to be really a great amount of personalization, really, and advancing with the units and so on that can then make the comeback on here if they need or so on. So it's up to you decide how you want to position the different models, and all the models be available, because it's really quite amazing and quite nice. It's only up to you decide how you want these models be seen and be up based on what you need and what you like.
So,
From Dino Mode, it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video, or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.